Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. We're filming today on site at Poirier Public Library, and we'd like to thank the library for providing us with this space to carry out our interviews. And just before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that our interviews are taking place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of Coquitlam First Nation. So we thank the Coquitlam people who continue to live on these lands and to care for the lands and the waters and all that lie above and below. So today I'm joined by Brad Lofgren from the city of Coquitlam, and Brad is the Director of Public Works. So thank you so much for joining us today, Brad.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us that we're heading into winter and the weather's changing out there? We've got a really dark, wet day. What are the indicators for the city of Coquitlam that winter has finally hit? Like, what sorts of things do you look for?
Well, there's two types of events that we get in the winter here. So there's the obvious rain events like we're seeing today, which can lead into snow events. So far no snow, but we've definitely had some significant rain events so far this fall.
So are you saying it's not over yet?
Certainly not over yet. Just getting started, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so we're moving from wet into possibly icier conditions. Can you tell us a little bit? We hear about brining. It's a little bit different than salting our roads. Can you tell us what is brining and when do you brine instead of salt? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So brine is a salt water mixture that we actually make in-house at our works yard with a specialized machine. It's checked to make sure it's the proper consistency. Obviously, we don't want to be putting out water on roads to further exacerbate the problem. But it's applied by trucks with a specialized distribution system, usually in drier weather.
Okay. So you don't wait until it's wet.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we know when icing conditions are going to be prevalent. We have a forecasted weather forecasting service that we subscribe to. So we get a prior notice of this happening. We go out and you'll see our trucks with the distribution systems actually applying the brine in liquid form that dries, and then it takes care of any icing conditions. But brining can also be used for in advance of a snow event. So we know snow is coming, we'll be out there to put brine down ahead of time, and it actually melts snow for a significant amount of time to give us time to actually start plowing and salting at that point. Brine offers some really good advantages over salt. Salt, as it's being distributed, tends to bounce and potentially bounce off the road. Also, vehicles traveling by can move the salt. So actually, vehicles tend to sweep the salt off to the curb, whereas brine stays in place. And as a result, we actually use about 20% less salt when we're brining compared to distributing conventional rock salt.
I did not know that, so I've learned something already. And that's a really good point about sort of cars going by and pushing the salt off onto the edges of the road and maybe down into waterways and places where it's not meant to be.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of the environmental impacts and how those might be reduced a little bit? And maybe, it sounds like brining is part of that, reducing the environmental impact as opposed to salting?
It certainly is. And when we do salt, so we go through quite an extensive process to make sure our trucks are ready to go. Our fleet is relatively new, so they all have computerized distribution systems, which helps with the distribution of salt. But we actually start prepping our equipment in August. A lot of people are enjoying the beach still. Our mechanics are actually preparing snow equipment.
You're thinking about the snow and the rains.
We are thinking about that all the time, but yeah, we know the season's coming, so we're actually dressing trucks with plows and sanders and testing their operation. And part of that is actually calibrating the sanders so that they're putting out the appropriate amount of salt. So we don't want to put out too much salt for those reasons, environmental reasons as well as cost. So the computerized systems as well are very automated. When the truck stops, the salt distribution stops. So there are a lot of significant savings by utilizing all of these measures.
I guess cost as well as economics. You don't want to be wasting the brine. Can you talk a little bit about how it's like, what is it calibrated for? Is it temperature, or is it just like speed of the truck, or?
Yeah, so the distribution depends on the speed of the truck, so it's calibrated for that, but it's more based on surface area. So there's actual physics out there that talk about the melting ability of salt, and so we use the minimum amount that we possibly can to achieve the desired result.
Okay, and does it depend on road surface at all, or is it pretty uniform?
It's pretty uniform throughout, yes.
Okay. Can you tell us something about snow removal that might surprise residents? Like, can you just walk us through what the day would be like? It's a big snowstorm. What happens?
So we watch the forecast carefully, as I mentioned earlier, and when we know this is coming, part of our operations is to actually put our crews on 12-hour shifts. So they'll be on 12-hour day shift and 12-hour night shift. So a 12-hour shift in a truck is very grueling. People might think it's easy. It's not. You're driving very large, heavy trucks in very treacherous road conditions. As everybody knows, Coquitlam has a lot of very steep grades. So it's very stressful for our drivers. They're on the truck for a very long period of time. Some of our very steep grades, we actually have to back up to make it up. There's no way we can go up forward. So
you're backing and salting and then driving.
Backing and salting, absolutely, yes. So a lot of people probably don't know that, but that's sometimes the safest way that we can manage to take care of some of the steeper grades.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's a surprise to me. If you saw a truck backing up a hill, you might be a little surprised.
You probably would be surprised, yes.
So now we hear sometimes when it snows, everybody's like, oh, they haven't plowed my street yet. And there must be some sort of way to prioritize. How do you prioritize who gets plowed first?
Yeah, so this is a good time to talk about our website. So the city's website at coquitlam.ca/winterwise contains a lot of great information that residents can look at, things that they can do. And one of the things that is they can look at our priority system. So we have priority 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Priority 1 is our main routes, so to keep transit moving, keep emergency vehicles moving, and as many vehicles moving as we possibly can. Priority 2 is areas with very steep grades, with schools on them, community care centers, that sort of thing. And priority 3 is our local roads. So we go through those in priority order, and that's to keep as many people moving as we possibly can. And there's a map that's on the Winterwise page that the residents can go to, and every street is there listed with the priority that the street actually is.
That's good to know, because I think sometimes that takes away a little bit of the frustration when you understand that there is a plan and that it's important to keep those transit buses and those main arteries open, and then secondly to keep those services, access to services, and then individual folks, of course, can get out after that.
Exactly.
So you have talked about the terrain in Coquitlam, about the hills, and I think it was quite interesting talking about those salt trucks maybe going backwards up the hill. What are some of the other challenges in Coquitlam when it comes to salting and brining and taking care of the winter roads? We're trying to keep traffic moving as best we can, so dealing with traffic is also another consideration. There's always challenges related to that. We ask people to make sure their vehicles are properly equipped with winter tires. That helps tremendously to keep people moving. In our experience, once one vehicle gets stuck, others quickly back up behind it. I think we've all been there, behind somebody.
Exactly, and especially on grades, things back up and get very congested very quickly, which is one of our biggest challenges.
Right. Now, we're seeing possibly snow. We don't see snow every year. You and I had a conversation just prior to this talking about how things are changing a little bit, and that sometimes we see more rain and more intense rain and less snow now. Can you talk a little bit about stormwater management? So does the city consider green infrastructure like tree retention and permeable surfaces, things like that when it comes to managing stormwater? I'm not sure if that's entirely under your control, but is that something that you think about?
Yes, the city does do all of those measures and more. So commercial type properties have required to have systems on site to detain stormwater for many, many years. So the stormwater is detained on site for as long as possible.
Is that through tanks?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, tanks and other measures. And the city actually just passed a bylaw recently where smaller residential properties need to do the same. And that's to avoid the storm system from getting overwhelmed in large events where the water is detained on site and then it can be discharged after the event is over when the system has capacity.
Right, and I think as our climate continues to change, that's something that's more and more important. And also the other thing is we're seeing more and more development, so probably more impermeable surfaces throughout the city as well.
Exactly right, yes.
Do you have any advice or tips that you can share with residents? You know, things that would make your job a little bit easier?
Yeah, so we ask that people look after their properties. So keeping drains clear, isolating and winterizing exterior hose bibs, irrigation systems. You wouldn't believe how many calls we get for those that are still actually active in freezing temperatures, which causes us a lot of grief at times. Also, if it's safe to do so, keep any catch basins around your property or in your neighborhood clear. You can actually adopt a catch basin in Coquitlam or multiple catch basins. That's also on our Winterwise page. Sort of a fun program that gives residents the ability to help us out. So those are some very easy things that people can do that help us dramatically in times of falling leaves and snow.
Well, thank you so much. And I think you are heading into a busy season, and I'm not sure if you ever don't have a busy season, and I hope that we can chat again in the future. And maybe when spring rolls around, we can have a chat about how your job changes and how the road conditions maybe adjust to that. And in the meantime, I guess we will ask people to check out that Winterwise program site with the City of Coquitlam.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We've been talking with Brad Lofgren from the City of Coquitlam, getting ready for winter and getting the roads all ready.